So from Porsche, he is the topic owner of artificial intelligence. Please welcome Tristan Behrens.
So hello everybody. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. First of all, I have to apologize. I only have one slide today, and this is basically the slide. So if you like to add me on some social network, just take my name. I was thinking about doing a deep technical presentation about deep learning, especially about deep learning that we did at Porsche Digital App, but I decided that basically today my 20 minutes will be about just storytelling. And you're going to see that these stories have something in common. It's basically time to market and digitalization. I start with the first story. The first story is a very simple, not so significant story. It's the story of my life. Well, you don't see it, but I'm kind of old. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Basically, I grew up in a village that has about 1,000 inhabitants. My parents were very happy. Well, my childhood was really great for my parents because as kids, we just left at 9 a.m. in the morning in summer and came back at 9 p.m. And we were just playing outside. There was rivers around, there was forests around, so we were minding our own business. It was like up until the age of around 12 or 13 when I got into contact with computers. I have an uncle who's into electronics. He gave us our first computer because my mother wanted to do writing and calculation things. But I kind of got curious about the whole thing. So a little fast forwarding, I grew up as like a technically interested teenager, and then I started programming when I was like maybe 16 years old. And you have to imagine, I mean, there's a couple of people in the room who are already into programming. There are a couple of people who are learning now. For me, learning programming was sitting alone, reading a book about programming. And if I ran into a bug or something else, I had to fix the bug. There was no way for me to go to Stack Overflow, copy-paste a little source code, then make sure it looks like my style, and deploy it into a product. It was not possible. So I had like two friends who were also into programming, but I was more like C, C++, and the other dude was BASIC. So we could talk about loops, but not about like fixing each other's problems. A little more fast forwarding, I decided, well, I want to become a games developer because games are the best thing you can do when it comes to programming because you learn so many things, including artificial intelligence. Someone said, if you want to go into games industry, please make a diploma in computer science. We got cookies. So I went there, did a diploma, somehow got stuck, did a PhD in artificial intelligence, and then went into industry. And industry, I learned lots about, now comes the buzzword, digitalization. We are currently like in the times, and you see it in the name of this conference, where this whole digital thing is very, very essential because it's a part of our whole culture now. I mean, there was this digital natives, people who grew up, not like me, with computers and smartphones. I mean, I got my first smartphone when I was in my 20s. Children now have smartphones, and now we're talking about data natives, people that grow accustomed to working with data from an early age on. And that's like one thing that's very important, that now is an excellent time to go into, for example, data science or deep learning. So, and after like 2 years working for Volkswagen, where I did this mobility thing, digitalization in a huge company, I went to MHP and Porsche to help them as well. I did little mobile stuff at the beginning, and at the beginning of last year in August, I joined the Porsche Digital App, which I'm going to talk about a little later. So, and now I'm here with lots of stories I could tell. But now I will just sidetrack a little and tell you another story. Truth be told, I'm heavily into yoga, and I wanted to avoid going to India, because for me, going to India as a yoga teacher is a cliche, and I didn't want to fulfill it. But I had this it was a good thing that happened to me in my life is that I ran into my significant other, who is Indologist, and she took me to India, kicking and screaming. I really did not want to go there, but I decided, okay, let's have a vacation there, 3 weeks in India, let's just walk around. I expected lots of things, lots of noise, maybe a little pollution, maybe getting trouble with upset stomach, but there are lots of things I did not expect, and one thing was digitalization. When you go to India as a tourist, you travel with tuk-tuks. Tuk-tuks are small autocars, auto rickshaws they call them. What I did not expect is that you call them with Uber. The people who are driving these tuk-tuks, they can barely read. They cannot read maps, they cannot read text. They can read numbers because that's the fare they take from you. So, and you go there to a third world country and they are digitalized because everyone has a smartphone there. So, next thing that happened is I was sitting in South India, Madurai. That's tropical, so lots of humidity, it's very hot. I was sitting there with a family, we lived there for a couple of days talking to the family, to the father, to the patriarch. And he was heavily into digitalization. I mean, I was there in tropical area talking about drones and data science, and he knew about machine learning, and then he took his boy, his eldest son, because I have to talk to him, I have a PhD in artificial intelligence, and he's supposed to learn deep learning with Python. So he just started studying mechatronics, he's going into Java, and next thing he's supposed to learn is Python. Another thing that happened is in Delhi, again, a different Airbnb, there was a guy sitting there in a family, he has a laptop, a Mac. And I said, yeah, it's a nice computer you have there. Yes, you have. It's about my third or fourth startup I'm creating. We have like this tiny little idea with big data. And like we are going to release this as microservices on a cloud, and basically, yeah, well, machine learning, deep learning, we have it on our schedule because we would like to come up with some nice chatbot. And I was blown away. Again, my whole intention was I go to India, I get to know the people, I get to know the food, I get to know the culture. I didn't expect digitalization, and they are doing a lot there. A lot. They are learning, they are applying, and they are a good example for like a whole society walking towards like one nice goal, one nice area to learn. And like everyone here who is like thinking about going into things like a deep learning, do it now. Another thing has again to do with, it's an excellent time for doing things, it's the Porsche Digital App. Imagine, I mean, there's Porsche. They are famous for very, very nice cars who can go at very, very high speeds. And they found out, after several decades of a company's existence, they started in around the 30s or 40s, I guess, that like creating nice cars is really, really a good thing to do, but maybe when looking at people like, or companies like Tesla, maybe we should add a little bit more IT to a company. So they did the only thing that was like logical in that time. They created a think tank, like an ideation hub, another buzzword, a digital laboratory, with very, very skilled people who are like members of the organization, but do things differently. I mean, for us, it's like, I would like to do machine learning. This requires me to get access to some nice hardware. You need, for deep learning, some nice GPUs for training the neural networks. At Porsche, traditionally, it's not possible. You have to get a budget, you have to fill out forms, you have to wait for months or weeks, for months or even years. It's not that easy. For us, it was just a couple of days to get someone to pay us, and then we bought the stuff, and now we have it. The thing I like about Porsche Digital App is that we went straight into business. So I do have an artificial intelligence background, so it was for me kind of easy to get into the deep learning. We started at the beginning of the year. We did something very important with a knowledge base. So we took into account everything that's around there. We learned a lot, and then we started implementing. Implementing is a very, very good thing. I talked to a couple of people today who are considering going into like implementing stuff. Again, time to market, excellent times. And another story. There is some guy, you might have seen him on the internet. He is a big Indian guy called Siraj, and he is like famous for doing lots and lots of YouTube videos on deep learning, on TensorFlow. He's very excited. He's doing excellent videos. And coincidentally, I ran into this guy at Mauer Park. I was walking around there on Sunday, and then I saw him. I told my girlfriend, I'm sorry, I have to stalk an Indian guy. And I said, hello, are you Siraj? And he says, yes, I am. Why do you ask? And I said, I'm Tristan from Porsche Digital App, and basically everything we learned about TensorFlow, we learned from you. Which is the thing. There's a big difference. I have said that I have seen things you people wouldn't believe. I was sitting in my room, learning stuff from a book which was old. Now, you can go to the internet. You can download the software. If you have a Mac, it's a matter of seconds. If you have a Windows computer, it might take a couple of days, but you get ready in no time. And another good thing is there is the data available. I mean, I've seen so many data sets around, so many corpora that you can just download and put in your neural networks. There's people writing blogs, there's people writing tutorials, there's things and things available. And the whole thing like changed, because nowadays this whole neural network programming is extremely accessible. When I was studying at university, and there was like a research group doing neural network programming, and they still did it old style. There was still no way to speed up computing or training of these things, because no one realized that you can use these GPUs. So they're doing the traditional stuff, and they said, yeah, maybe in the future we can do some nice things with that. It changed like 2-3 years ago. Now everyone can do it. You have the hardware, you have the software, just download it and get started. Which is, again, I have to remind you, this is excellent to get started. Another thing, another motivation is, I know projects that have like 30,000 lines of code. If you want to implement a neural network that takes all poems from Schiller and Goethe and classifies them. So in order that you put a text, an arbitrary text there, and it says, sounds more like Goethe, we are talking about like 300 lines of code. And the neural network part is that, 5 lines of code. Because people did all the work. The algorithms are there, the whole research is there. Okay, there's lots of people adding even more to the whole research part. I mean, there's like every day in the news that is something new, but more than just the basic tool set is just around. You just have to find the stuff. That's the biggest challenge. You have to find like implementations and adapt them to your needs. But it's nice because you just go to Stack Overflow and find someone who did a convolutional neural network for some very special purpose, and you just download the code, adapt it. It's very nice because it takes you like 4 hours to complete a nice project like this classifier. And I'm not kidding. I'm really talking about 4 hours. And most of these 4 hours is still data science. So I don't want to sidetrack, but I would just like to mention that when you do deep learning, you have to deal a lot with the data. You have to find it, you have to download it, you have to clean it, you have to get it into some format that can be used in a neural network. Another story, what we are really doing at Porsche Digital App when it comes to deep learning. At the end of the day, if you take a look like from a long distance at deep learning, it's basically a very, very simple data structure. It's a graph, it has weights, it has biases. And why it's working so good is because it can be very, very complex in size. The data structure is very simple, but it's really, really big. That's why we're talking about deep neural networks. Deep means very big. There's an algorithm around that you can use for training that net. Algorithm is old. It's called backward propagation. It's already there. And a neural network, I mean, for those who don't know it, who would like have a picture of it, it's like a box, a big box, and you have lots of numbers in it. And you can put numbers into the box, and other numbers fall out. Just a very abstract picture. And the good thing is that all data we can encode as numbers. Very nice thing. So we started with the usual thing. We did object recognition, just to get started. I mean, we wanted to know what are neural networks about, so let's just go and make an object classifier. We take a picture. Picture is a stream of pixels. A pixel is red, green, and blue. Just put it there, a huge vector of numbers. We do some magic to compress it. We do some other magic to clean it up a little, maybe change the coloring a little. And then you take this and feed it into a neural network. You can do the same with language data. I mean, it's beautiful. I've never expected that natural language processing has such amazing things. I mean, this word embeddings. You can take a word and embed it into a word vector, which has like 300 numbers. And you can do math with that. There's this example that maybe all of you have already heard. You take king and you subtract man and you add woman and you get a vector that represents queen. And you can even take sentences and change the tempo of that. You can change many things with that. So for us, it was like, okay, let's have a look at data that Porsche provides. I got a huge data set from the Porsche help desk, which is a ticketing system. You call, you have a problem, they help you, and they create a ticket. And the ticket is a description of what's wrong and a solution, both in text. So we did a simple exercise. There's something that's called sequence-to-sequence networks, where you feed in a sequence of vectors and you get a sequence out. And we trained it over the weekend because there was lots of data. And then we got like a conversational agent, chatbot, you can talk to. I gave him some description of a problem, and this thing just provided me with an answer. And the nice thing was, the answer kind of made sense. For us, it was just a proof of concept to show that we can use natural language processing, deep learning in a Porsche domain. For us, it was also an exercise in learning the whole thing, but it was kind of impressive. And what we also learned is, I mean, again, with data pre-processing, Porsche traditional, I got the data as a huge Excel sheet. So it's normal there. I mean, I grew accustomed to getting data from different sources, so Excel was not a challenge for me. So I had to write a preprocessor, which takes like all the data from the Excel sheets, does some cleanup, removes, for example, dialogue that is in English, because we want to have a German one, and then maps it into something that the neural network can understand. But what I would like to stress is that when it comes to deep learning, we went not really deep into, for example, natural language processing, but we took like a broad approach. I mean, we started with the object recognition. We did natural language processing a lot because it's very fruitful. You can learn a lot from that. We also did audio processing. So if you ever have the chance to come to our lab, maybe there's our AI already still around that listens to the coffee machine and after a couple of seconds tells you, well, this is a cappuccino, just from listening. Because we took a neural network that takes audio data, maps it to graphics data, puts it into sequences, feeds the sequences into a neural network, and the neural network just says, well, it's a latte macchiato, because we realize the sounds. So for us, we learned that data, for example, the sound of a cappuccino is like a symphony. So it has a structure and a rhythm to it. At the beginning it's grinding, and then the pumps you hear, and then it's motion of something which is easily recognizable. And we actually taught an artificial intelligence to learn that. And there's just one thing I would like to mention also with car data. Porsche has lots of car data. You can feed it in neural networks and do some predictions on, for example, some properties of streets. And that's the good thing about Porsche, because Porsche has lots of data. And the good thing, also lots of problems with the data. And in this context, a problem is something good because it leads to progress. So I'll just take the last minute of wrapping up. Again, sorry, I do only have one slide. I did not go very deep into technical issues. I mean, I could have told you about this nice sequence-to-sequence network, but I think this is for something else. It's a scientific paper we have written and we are about to publish. I didn't want to bore you with that. But I would like to get like this message straight ahead that it's now time to market for things like data science and deep learning to do it. I mean, you have it. There's your computers. You can do it everywhere. You have the data, download it from everywhere. You can even come up with your own data. There is the algorithms around. So many papers you can read and maybe you should not read because it's all implemented. Download software like Keras or TensorFlow. In a couple of lines of codes, you can do deep learning at home while you're watching like a favorite movie. You can do the training in parallel. You can learn more and more and more. There's Stack Overflow. There's lots of platforms to learn it. And the programming language, Python, you've heard about it yesterday, is very, very accessible. You can learn it in no time. And at the end of the day, the whole neural network thing is not something to scare you because it's that amount of code. So, and I would be very happy if like those people in the room who are already deep learning get deeper into it, and people who are thinking about just give it a try on the weekend. So, that's my talk. Thank you very much. Namaste.